students of Reddit, what was the most awkward time you saw a teacher outside of school? Bumped into an old teacher at the urinal while being completely intoxicated at a bar. Open up to him about how much his class meant to me. The class was gym. That's my favorite so far. I was out of class sick for the day back in 4th grade. My mom had to go to the store for something, but didn't want to leave me home alone. So I went with her, despite my 101F fever. We're at checkout and I see my teacher, and he's seen me. Panicking, I told him that I'm sick and not playing hooky. He laughed and said he was. Your teacher sounds awesome. My mother once told me the story of how, when she was in high school in England in the 1970s, she saw her teacher in a pub toilet, drunk, slumped against the wall. My mother was around 15 at the time and shouldn't have been drinking in a pub on a Saturday night. The teacher recognized her and drunkenly said, "I won't say anything if you don't." My sister was in a fender bender right after getting her license. The guy who rear-ended her was her driving teacher. I mistook the meaning of this sentence. I saw my married middle school science teacher at his gay bar with a guy who certainly wasn't his wife. How else are you supposed to learn fashion? Found out he lived in my neighborhood when his dog bit me and I had to get stitches. Mr. Feeney's dog's a bee. I'm the teacher. Not awkward but a WTF moment for me. Went to the pub last night and was served by an old student. Jesus, I feel old. My cousin is a teacher and she bartends in the summer for extra money. She has served some of her old students now. Almost worse, I'd think. Not a student, but the parent of one. My daughter was clothes shopping at the mall, and she didn't notice at first that the woman fitting her at Victoria's Secret was her science teacher. I think I've seen this movie. I was babysitting for one of the high school teachers probably when I was in 10th or 11th grade. Him and his wife get home and I call my dad to come pick me up and I was just hanging out in the kitchen waiting for him, chatting with the wife about the kids. Then all these cars start pulling up and people flood into the house with cases of beer, bottles of booze. It was all teachers from the high school that taught me or were currently teaching me. They were all so drunk and would like sober up when they saw me and try to make awkward conversation for a few minutes. Apparently the teacher I was babysitting for offered up his house for the after party of whatever they did that night. I think it was more awkward for them than it was for me. I especially remember my French teacher who was such a buttoned up and serious middle-aged lady literally stumbling into the house giggling, hair all a mess, plastered. She started telling me how well I did on a presentation I had earlier that week and how happy I'd be when I got my grade back. The thing that got me the most was when my dad finally got there and I'm walking to the car. A few of them were in the garage smoking cigs and tried to hide them when I walked by. Those were jazz cigarettes. Saw my English teacher shoplifting underwear from Primark. It's never awkward for me, but one of my favorite times it was awkward for them was at a local music festival. This was one of those 3-day weekend things where everyone is enjoying some sort of mind-altering experience or another. I ran into a group of students who were just blazed, tripping on something. I mean barely functional. I let them try to play it off for a while before I showed mercy and moved on. They tried so hard to seem sober. Freaking hilarious. If I was a teacher this would be my goal. I worked at a local Target store after high school. My band instructor came in and bought a pack of condoms and came through my checkout. He chatted me up for a bit and it was weird. Since band went on trips for parades and festivals, his family came with us a lot. His wife was friendly, but his kids were mostly terrible. Glad he was using protection. Previous high school teacher, embarrassed and drunk when his wife was throwing up all over me as I was forcibly removing her from the bar I worked at for dancing naked on a table. I delivered food to a brewery for an old history teacher. She's 5 years older and clearly drunk. She got all close up on me but gave me a $10 tip so it was cool. Cool. When I was in 4th grade, after my parents divorced, my aunt came to live with us for a while. One night I was watching TV and procrastinating doing my homework. There was a knock at the door and it was my teacher, Mr. L. I was so shocked that I blurted out, "I'm just about to start my homework." I swear he laughed and said, "No, machine press, we're here for your aunt." Is she ready? That's when I noticed he was with his wife and some man who was to be my aunt's date for the evening. The four of them were going to a concert or something. I felt pretty stupid about it, especially because he liked to bring it later and laugh about the idea that he would come by students' houses and check on their homework progress. I had an English teacher in high school, really wacky guy. You either loved him or hated him, and basically if you were failing in his class and not doing anything about it, he would show up to your house and talk to your parents. A lot less students failed. The local festival, under a tent with half-naked singer rubbing her tea on him while he looked uncomfortable, but smirking. 17. Senior year. Snuck into a 21 and up bar with some friends that were not from my school. Get to bar and wait to order drink. Bartender is current art teacher. Something she likes to do on weekends, I assumed. We stare at each other for 2 seconds, then she asks what'll it be for all of us. Order gin and tonic. She serves me drink, and we go about our night. School was the same, so 10/10 would drink with art teacher again. Gin and tonic was good too. Look, you can either get the frick out, or you can order a drink. I don't care which, but you're holding up the line. Also, your report on Monday is due Monday, no excuses. I saw my 4th grade teacher who hated me, absolutely hammered at a restaurant. She was pretty embarrassed about it, but never brought it up to me. I smoke a lot in the treehouse at my parents' house. One summer after college I looked out the door as I was taking a fat bong rip and made eye contact with my old high school English teacher walking her dog, gave her a casual head nod and slowly closed the door. That is the best mental image. When I was in high school, I ran into my middle school history teacher at the movies. He was with his boyfriend, who happened to be my high school art teacher. It had long been rumored that they were gay together and this confirmed it. They tried to act as if they had simply bumped into one another there. Super awkward. When I was in grade 10, I had a crush on my English teacher, whose support incidentally inspired me to write. My friend's sister was a horseback rider and we went to the stable one day to pick her up. As we were walking through, we saw my teacher, who was washing the underside of her horse. Its horse bits were fully engorged. She saw me, smiled widely, and said hello. I stuttered hello back. I'm still not sure how to mentally categorize that event, and sometimes wonder if it was just a dream. Its horse bits were fully engorged. Oh my, how vivid. 2nd grade teacher was missing for a few days. We had a substitute. I didn't think anything of it until his mugshot popped up on the local news one night and they said he had abused a bunch of kids in the class above me. But my mom was like, well now you know. And knowing is half the battle. I had a college professor who was a massive dong. He would mark down your grade for asking questions if he thought the question was dumb. One student got up and left in the middle of class and apparently walked directly to advising to change majors. One day he drove past us in a restaurant parking lot and he stopped to have a perfectly pleasant and normal chat as if he wasn't crazy. Read that as had a massive dong and was displeased with the story. The guy who's going to be a teacher, and sometimes teaches us, supervised by a teacher. We talked to our trainee teacher at a party who was completely drunk and shared a bottle of alcohol with us. Later, we ate scrambled eggs at 4 AM and he slept on the couch. The walk of shame the next day was quite embarrassing for him. Yeah, if his college found out about that I bet he's not going to be a teacher. When I was stripping my senior year of HS and my history homeroom teacher came in, once a week. My guidance counselor was also our exterminator. He came by to do his 6-month spray right after my parents called him to tell him they wanted to send me to military school. Skipped school to go to a concert. A teacher who apparently did the same was also at said show. As long as neither of us breathed a word against the other, it was our secret. My old ceramics teacher from high school used to rip on me all the time for being stoned in art class. I eventually cleaned up and joined the military, and I was home for leave and driving on the highway when I see this goofy cube car coming up ahead of me with all these familiar bumper stickers about art and loving Earth. I go to pull up next to him, and he was smoking a bowl while driving on the highway. I gave him a wave once he noticed me, but I don't think he recognized me and he pulled off. A few years later, I saw he and his wife at Wakarosa and we shared a bowl together and I joked about the time I caught him smoking on his drive home and he just goes, "I thought that was you." but I figured you'd be in prison so I just discounted it. My GF met her teacher in holidays. He was having his honeymoon and had the hotel room directly above the room of my GF. He wasn't too pleased when he noticed that. Played in a punk rock band and had a show an hour and a half away. My chemistry teacher lived in the same neighborhood as the guy who drove the van, and his wife was their band director at school. We get about 15 minutes from home on our way back, and we recognize my teacher's car in front of us, swerving all over the road, rumble strips, oncoming traffic, you name it. Guy was wasted. I do not approve, of course. Monday was very awkward, though he had no idea. This is going back almost 10 years. When I was a sophomore, I ran into my math teacher at a Spencer's. It was awkward because she had an adult toy that had to have been almost 2 foot. She was a tiny lady. I felt bad for her vagina. Quite possibly a gag gift for someone. When I was in high school, I went to my friend's house to smoke some weed. We went to the shed in his backyard and we walked in on his dad and our physics teacher smoking a bowl. So we stayed and smoked their weed instead of ours. Dude, sharing is caring. That's a great story. When I was 18, I went on a stag do of my mate's older brother, and the best man was an old teacher of mine. Top bloke, and he bought me a lap dance at one point. Wasn't actually awkward, now I write it out. This is the most British comment I've ever read. A few years ago, when I was still in high school, my mom and I went to the local swimming pool. When we were changing our clothes, I saw my math teacher, approx 45 years old, in the dressing room as well, helping her children dress themselves and then herself. My math class has always been awkward thereafter, as I could not unsee her hanging breasts anymore. I am a teacher and recently joined the gym. I was changing one day and made eye contact with a young woman walking by me. A few days later, I saw some kids at school looking at a schedule for the gym. I told them I go there too, and they said, yeah, I saw you in the change room, greet, a place where I was topless. There is this little vacation town about 20 minutes away from where I grew up. It's fun to hang out there in the summer because of all the shops and lakeshore festivities, live music in the streets, etc. I had just graduated 8th grade and my friends and I were walking around the streets one summer evening. We saw our 7th grade English teacher and some of his friends walking toward us. Hey Mr. Whistler, fake name. He proceeded to stop mid-stride and freeze. He stayed that way for a few seconds with his eyes wide and then looked around and went and hid behind a tree, just peeking out at us every few seconds. We were cracking up laughing and walked over to him like, WTF are you doing? He says, I may have done drugs and you shouldn't see me like this. He was probably in his mid-20s at the time. He looked paranoid as all heck and his friends were in tears from laughing so hard. It was great. Philosophy teacher, community college. Dude totally opened my eyes, then tried to open my pants. Came back after a few years after I took his class. We had some lunch and caught up. He kept telling me the ultimate journey was to expose ourselves, to be vulnerable. He kept saying he was safe and that I could expose with him in his apartment if I wanted to. I didn't. Shame. Awesome teacher. Sounds like Mr. Jefferson from Life is Strange. In high school, I was the student director of our broadcasting class, so the teacher had my number. She but dialed me 4 years after graduation. She realized she did when she heard my voice in her pocket and then engaged me in an awkward how ya been conversation. Saw a teacher in Ann Summers the other day, a sex toy shop in the UK that also sells underwear. Ditched school to go to McDonald's to find my vice principal had left school for a cigarette, who had told everyone he'd quit. This was 10 years ago, but mutually drunk and high at a Bob Dylan concert. I am currently a teacher, but this happened when I was 19 or just out of high school. Was out at the club with a few friends, Canada, and we ran into some girls from high school. The night was fairly tame, and about an hour later I ran into a teacher coach from our school. He coached me in basketball, so I met his wife and kids, and he was a pretty legit guy, probably around 30-35 YO. After midnight, when everyone was feeling good, we went into the dance floor and saw this teacher making out with one of our female friends. Probably not too awkward for him if he knew we were all there, but it was definitely awkward for us. You have been visited by the beautiful Squidward. Comment beautiful as Squidward so that your beauty excels that of others. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.